Have you ever shared something in a moment of emotion, only to sit quietly afterward and think, I wish I had just kept that to myself? Not because what you said was wrong, but because, after that moment, the dynamic between you and your loved ones quietly shifted, and not in the way you had hoped. The truth is, as we grow older, we don't just accumulate wisdom, we accumulate regrets. And one of the greatest regrets people express in their later years is saying too much, giving away parts of themselves that should have remained private. Because not everything needs to be shared. Not every worry, every disappointment, or every burden should be passed along to others, even if they're family. There are 5 things that, if you learn to keep them to yourself, can make life after 65 much lighter and more peaceful. Especially number 2 and number 5. These are the ones you should absolutely never share with anyone. Not to be secretive or distant, but to protect the dignity and peace that become more valuable than gold in your later years. Let's explore them together. Here, you don't need to like or subscribe, but if you believe this content has value, share your story or simply type number 9, because sometimes one small action can help someone find exactly what they need. So, what are those 5 things? Let's start with the first one, the root of many regrets that people carry for the rest of their lives. Number 1, regrets about the past. Let's start with something we all carry, whether we admit it or not. Regrets about the past. It's natural. After 65, you've lived through decades of choices, experiences, and crossroads. Some paths led to joy, others to disappointment. And as the years pass, it's tempting to look back and think, what if I had done things differently? Maybe you wish you'd chosen a different career, treated someone better, or taken a chance you were too afraid to grab. These regrets sit quietly in your mind, and sometimes they feel like they need to be spoken out loud, to your children, your spouse, or even your closest friends. But here's the hard truth. Sharing those regrets often does more harm than good. Imagine telling your adult child, I wish I had spent less time working and more time with you when you were young. You might think it shows vulnerability, maybe even love, but to them, it might sound like guilt they didn't ask to carry. They might start questioning their childhood, wondering if they were truly happy, or if your regret somehow invalidates the memories they cherished. Or pictures sharing with your spouse, I should have never sold that house. Life could have been so different. Suddenly, what was once just a passing thought becomes a weight in the room. Conversations turn from reminiscing to rehashing old decisions, and instead of finding peace, you're both left feeling powerless over something that can't be changed. That's the thing about regrets, they're anchors, holding you to moments that no longer exist. And when you speak them aloud, they don't just stay in your mind, they spread, touching the people you love, sometimes making them question choices they were once at peace with. But does this mean you should bottle everything up? No. Reflection is healthy. Learning from regrets is wise. But the key is what you do with that reflection. Instead of sharing regret as a burden, share it as wisdom. Instead of saying, I regret not taking better care of my health, you could say, if I could give you one piece of advice, it's this. Never take your health for granted. Make time for it, no matter how busy life gets. See the difference? One drains the listener with past sorrow. The other empowers them with future clarity. Remember, regret itself is not the enemy. It's what happens when you let it define your conversations, your mood, and your relationships. At this stage in life, you deserve peace, not prolonged disappointment. And sometimes, peace comes from quiet acceptance, understanding that the past cannot be rewritten, but the story moving forward, that's still entirely in your hands. So, when regret knocks, don't open the door and invite it in for coffee. Acknowledge it, learn from it, and then gently show it the way out. Because the best thing you can do with regret is let it go. Not just for your sake, but for the peace of those around you. And speaking of peace, there's one thing that can destroy it faster than anything else, talking too much about your finances. Let's move on to the second thing you should always keep to yourself. Number 2, financial matters. Let's talk about money. It's a topic that can build bridges or burn them down entirely. And after 65, when life slows down and retirement settles in, Conversations about finances tend to come up more often, sometimes casually, sometimes out of concern. But here's the truth. Sharing too much about your financial situation is a dangerous game. Why? Because money changes how people see you. Imagine this. You mention to your family that you're struggling a bit financially. You're not asking for help, just sharing your thoughts. But suddenly, your children start worrying, maybe even feeling guilty. They might stretch their own budgets to offer assistance, even when they can't really afford to. The dynamic shifts from family to obligation. On the flip side, let's say you mention a recent financial win, a good investment, a savings milestone, or even a generous pension. You might think it's harmless, but human nature is tricky. Expectation creeps in. Family members might unconsciously assume, well, they're doing fine. They can cover this. They don't really need support. And if inheritance ever comes into the conversation, tension can build between siblings, quietly poisoning relationships that were once warm and loving. Money has a way of turning emotional connections into transactional ones. What was once about love and care can suddenly feel like a balance sheet. Who gave what, who owes who, and who deserves more. But it's not just about family. Friends and acquaintances, too, can change their behavior once they know your financial situation. If you're open about struggling, some might distance themselves, not wanting to be burdened by your troubles. If you're perceived as well off, others might subtly expect you to cover more, treat more, or lend more. It's rarely malicious, it's just human nature. Now, this doesn't mean you should hide everything. If you genuinely need financial advice or assistance, of course, reach out to someone you trust. But choose your confidants carefully. Not every conversation needs to include your bank balance or investment portfolio. Think of it this way. Your financial health is like your personal health, private, personal, and best managed quietly. You wouldn't announce every ache and pain to everyone. So why treat your wallet any differently? And if you're wondering, well, what if my kids ask? Here's a better approach. Instead of saying, I'm doing great, or I'm really struggling, shift the focus. Say something like, I've got things under control, but I always appreciate your support in other ways. It reassures them without opening the door to unnecessary worry or assumptions. At this stage of life, peace is priceless, and nothing disrupts peace faster than letting money complicate your most important relationships. Keep your finances close to your chest, not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting something far more valuable: trust, respect, and the freedom to live your life without unnecessary drama. And speaking of drama, wait until you hear about the third thing you should never reveal: your true opinions about certain family members. Let's talk about that next. Number 3. Negative opinions about family members. Let's be honest, no family is perfect. Every family has its quirks, conflicts, and personalities that don't always mix well. But here's the thing. The older you get, the less good it does to speak your mind about certain family members. In fact, voicing negative opinions can quietly tear apart the very relationships you've spent a lifetime building. Imagine this. You're talking to your daughter about her husband. Maybe you've noticed he's not as attentive, or you don't agree with how he handles certain things. Out of love and concern, you express your honest opinion. But instead of gratitude, you're met with defensiveness. Suddenly, the conversation becomes tense. Your daughter feels caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to her spouse and respect for you. Or maybe it's a sibling, a nephew, an in-law. You vent about their behavior, thinking you're just sharing your perspective. But here's what usually happens. The words linger long after the conversation ends. Even if you were right, even if your concern was valid, the damage is done. Relationships grow colder. Trust erodes. Family gatherings become more awkward, and people start tiptoeing around certain topics to avoid confrontation. And let's not forget the ripple effect. When you share a negative opinion with one person, it rarely stops there. It gets retold, often with slight changes, depending on the listener's perspective. What started as a private concern turns into family gossip, creating sides and deepening divides. Now you might think, but I'm just being honest. Shouldn't they know how I feel? Here's the hard truth. Honesty without tact can do more harm than good. By the time you reach your later years, peace should be the priority. You've earned the right to enjoy your family, not to referee their conflicts or be seen as the source of tension. That doesn't mean you should tolerate disrespect or mistreatment. If something truly crosses the line, address it calmly, directly, and with the person involved, not by venting to others. But for everyday annoyances, let them go. Think of it like this: your silence can be a gift. It allows relationships to remain intact, especially when the issue is something time will soften or resolve on its own. It prevents small disagreements from becoming lifelong resentments. Instead of saying, "I don't like how your brother handles money," try, "I trust you'll work things out together." Instead of, "Your husband never helps around the house," say, "You two seem to be juggling a lot. Let me know if you ever need support." Choosing peace over criticism doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means recognizing that your words have weight, and at this stage of life, that weight can either build bridges or burn them. So, the next time you're tempted to voice a negative opinion about a family member, pause. Ask yourself, will this make anything better, or will it just make everything harder? If it's the latter, silence might just be the wisest answer. And speaking of things that can quietly strain relationships, let's move on to the fourth thing you should never overshare: your health struggles. It's more complicated than you might think. Number 4. Health issues. Let's talk about something personal: your health. As you age, it's natural for health concerns to become part of everyday life. Aches, pains, medications, doctor visits, they all start to pile up. And when you're with family, it's tempting to share these struggles. After all, they care about you, right? But here's the hard truth. Constantly talking about your health can change how your family sees you, and not in a good way. Think about it. When health becomes the main topic of conversation, it slowly reshapes your relationships. You stop being seen as the strong, wise figure you've always been and start being viewed through the lens of frailty. People start checking in not because they want to share life's moments, but because they're worried. Conversations shift from "How are you?" to "Have you taken your medication? What did the doctor say?" And here's the kicker. It's not that they don't care. They do. But hearing constant health complaints can create emotional exhaustion, especially for your children. They start feeling guilty for not being able to fix the situation, as if they're failing you. That guilt can lead to stress, avoidance, and eventually, fewer meaningful conversations. Nobody wants that. There's another side to this too: the impact on your own mindset. When you repeatedly talk about illness, it reinforces a narrative of decline. It becomes easier to focus on what's wrong rather than what's still good. This doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your resilience. Studies have shown that seniors who focus less on health complaints and more on positive aspects of life actually experience better overall well-being. Now, does this mean you should suffer in silence? Absolutely not. If something serious is going on, your family deserves to know. But there's a difference between keeping loved ones informed and letting health struggles dominate every interaction. Choose your moments wisely. Share what's necessary, but don't let it define your identity. Here's a practical tip: balance your conversations. For every mention of a health concern, share something positive. An interesting book you're reading, a memory that made you smile, or a small goal you've achieved, like walking a little farther than yesterday. This not only lightens the mood, but also reminds your family and yourself that you're more than your medical chart. And remember, sometimes the best way to ease your mind about health concerns isn't through endless discussion, but through action. Seeing your doctor, following advice, and most importantly, enjoying the life you have right now. Because in the end, your health is just one part of your story. Don't let it become the whole book. Now, let's move to the final thing you should never overshare: your deepest fears about the future. It's a conversation that can do more harm than good. Here's why. Number 5. Fear about the future. Let's be honest, growing older comes with uncertainty. What if your health declines? What if you become a burden to your family? What if you end up alone? These fears are real, and they're hard to ignore. But here's the thing. Talking about them too much can do more harm than good. Think about it. When you constantly share your worries about the future, whether it's about aging, finances, or loneliness, You unintentionally pass that anxiety onto your loved ones. Your children, no matter how old they are, want to see you as a source of strength, someone who's weathered life's storms and come out wiser. But when they hear repeated expressions of fear, they start feeling helpless. They can't change the future, and neither can you. All that happens is an endless cycle of worry. This sense of helplessness can lead to stress, frustration, and even resentment. It's not that your family doesn't care. They care too much, and when they feel powerless to ease your fears, they may start to withdraw, not because they don't love you, but because it's emotionally exhausting. Conversations that were once filled with laughter and connection start revolving around what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Nobody wins. There's another danger, too: how it shapes your own mindset. When you keep voicing fears about the future, your brain starts to believe that those fears are inevitable. It's like planting seeds of doubt that grow into full-blown anxiety. You start living in the shadow of what might happen instead of enjoying what is happening right now. Now, does this mean you should bottle up your fears and pretend everything's fine? No, but there's a difference between sharing a concern and making it the centerpiece of every conversation. Talk to a trusted friend, counselor, or even write down your thoughts. Sometimes, getting them out in private is all you need to find clarity and peace. And here's the most important part: focus on what you can control. You can't predict every twist and turn of life, but you can take steps to stay healthy, build meaningful connections, and find joy in the present. Instead of saying, "I'm scared of being alone," say, "What can I do today to feel more connected?" That shift in perspective is powerful. It turns fear into action. In the end, the future will unfold as it will, whether you worry about it or not. The best gift you can give yourself and your family is peace of mind. Show them, through your actions and attitude, that while the future is uncertain, you're choosing to live fully and fearlessly today. Now that we've covered all 5 things, here's the big takeaway. Staying silent about certain matters isn't about secrecy. It's about wisdom. It's about protecting your peace, preserving your dignity, and ensuring that your relationships remain strong, healthy, and built on mutual respect. So, what will you choose to keep to yourself? The best way to manage fear about the future is to focus on what you can control today. Instead of worrying about what might happen, ask yourself, what small step can I take right now to feel more secure and at peace? It could be organizing your important documents, discussing future plans with a trusted family member, or simply practicing mindfulness to calm your thoughts. Building a daily routine that includes moments of peace, like a short walk, reading a favorite book, or enjoying a quiet cup of coffee, can do wonders for your mental state. These simple habits remind you that life is still full of meaningful moments, no matter what tomorrow holds. And don't forget the power of gratitude. Take a moment each day to reflect on what's good in your life right now. It shifts your focus away from fear and toward appreciation, making the future feel less daunting and the present much more fulfilling. So, as you move forward, remember this: protecting your peace means protecting your future. The fewer burdens you carry, the lighter your days become. Life after 70 should not be weighed down by unnecessary worries or regrets. It should be about enjoying the moments you've earned, the people who truly matter, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're living on your own terms. Now, I'll leave you with one final thought. What will you choose to keep to yourself? Not out of secrecy, but out of wisdom. Because sometimes, silence isn't about hiding. It's about holding on to your dignity and peace. And as always, you don't need to like or subscribe. But if this message resonated with you, share your thoughts or simply type number 9. Because one small action can be the reminder someone else needs to protect their peace too. Let's move on to another story. Have you ever wondered what really happens inside a nursing home? Is it truly the safe, comfortable place people believe it to be? Or are there hidden realities no one talks about? If the day comes when you or a loved one must enter a nursing home, are you sure you know the full truth before making that decision? Many older adults move into nursing homes expecting convenience, care, and peace of mind. But what if reality is different from what you imagined? Losing independence, unexpected costs, overwhelming loneliness. These factors can change your life in ways you never expected. Today, meet Eleanor, an 82-year-old woman who has first-hand experience with the hidden struggles of nursing home life. Her story reveals shocking truths that everyone needs to hear before making one of the biggest decisions of their later years. Stay tuned. This could change everything you thought you knew. Number 1. The loss of independence. Eleanor always believed that moving into a nursing home would provide her with a secure, comfortable, and worry-free life. She pictured a place where she wouldn't have to worry about household responsibilities, no more cooking, cleaning, or home maintenance. But what she didn't anticipate was how much control she would lose over her own daily life. At first, the differences seemed minor. She could no longer choose precisely when to wake up, eat her meals, or go for a walk outside. But as the days turned into weeks, she came to a painful realization. Her entire routine was no longer her own. If she wanted fresh air, she had to wait for a staff member to assist her. If she craved a snack at an unscheduled time, she had to go without. Even personal choices, like when to bathe or what to wear, were dictated by a rigid facility schedule that prioritized efficiency over personal comfort. One of the hardest parts was the feeling of helplessness. Back at home, Eleanor had the freedom to start her mornings however she pleased. She could sip her favorite tea by the window, read a book, or take a quiet walk in the early sun. But now, she found herself spending long stretches of time sitting idly, waiting for assistance rather than actively making choices for herself. Her once vibrant and independent lifestyle slowly faded away. She moved less, relied more on caregivers, and soon, she felt her strength and mobility slipping away. The worst part wasn't just losing control over the big decisions, Eleanor reflected. It was the small, everyday choices. What time I wake up, whether I want to take a nap in the afternoon, how I spend my evenings. I felt like I was losing myself, piece by piece. The emotional toll was just as devastating as the physical consequences. Relying on others for even the smallest necessities made her feel like a burden. She started withdrawing from social activities, her once outgoing nature dulled by a growing sense of sadness and detachment. The loss of control over her life eroded her confidence, and with it, her motivation to engage with the world around her. But the impact of losing independence extended beyond just Eleanor. She noticed how other residents, once strong and self-sufficient, began to withdraw as well. Many who had been physically active in their own homes now spent much of their time in wheelchairs or sitting in common areas, disengaged from the life they once knew. The strict, impersonal routines of the nursing home did not nurture individuality. They reduced people to just another name on a chart, another task to be completed. What Eleanor wants others to understand is that independence isn't just about being able to walk unassisted or make big life decisions. It's about dignity, self-respect, and the ability to live on one's own terms. Once that independence is taken away, a vital part of life disappears with it. Before choosing a nursing home, she urges others to ask themselves, how will you maintain a sense of autonomy? Will you have choices in how you spend your time? Will your voice still matter in your own daily life? These questions matter more than any promise of comfort or convenience because, in the end, retaining control over the little things is what truly keeps life meaningful. Number 2. The real cost of nursing home care. When Eleanor first moved into a nursing home, she believed the cost would be straightforward, a fixed monthly fee covering everything she needed. However, she quickly discovered that the financial reality was far more complex and burdensome than she had ever imagined. At first, everything seemed reasonable. The advertised price covered basic accommodations, meals, and general care. But as weeks turned into months, Eleanor and her daughter noticed a troubling pattern. Additional fees creeping in, many of which were never clearly explained up front. There was a charge for everything, Eleanor recalled. Help with dressing, extra fee. Mobility assistance, another charge. Medication management, that wasn't included either. Even therapy sessions came at an additional cost. These seemingly small add-ons accumulated rapidly, turning what appeared to be a manageable monthly expense into an overwhelming financial strain. What many families fail to realize is how quickly these costs escalate. Eleanor's daughter had assumed insurance would cover most of it, but that assumption was shattered once the bills started arriving. "We thought we had planned well," Eleanor admitted, "but we were blindsided by hidden costs we hadn't anticipated." Beyond the structured fees, there were numerous hidden expenses that added to the burden. My daughter had to pay for my personal hygiene products, additional clothing, and even fees for transportation when she wanted to visit me, Eleanor said. It wasn't just about affording the nursing home itself. It was about all the little things that added up. Yet, the most devastating cost wasn't financial. It was emotional. Eleanor saw the weight of worry on her daughter's face, the stress of juggling unexpected expenses while ensuring her mother received proper care. "I started feeling guilty," Eleanor admitted. "I didn't want to be a financial strain on my family, but there was nothing I could do. It made me question if I had made the right decision in moving here." Eleanor's experience serves as a cautionary tale. The true cost of a nursing home extends far beyond the advertised price. Families need to thoroughly investigate what is included, what additional services will cost, and how much insurance will realistically cover before making such a life-altering decision. Her advice: don't just glance at the base price. Demand a full breakdown of potential costs and prepare for unexpected expenses. The financial burden of a nursing home can be much greater than you think. Number 3. The mental and emotional toll of nursing home life. When Eleanor moved into a nursing home, she expected a place where she would feel secure, cared for, and surrounded by companionship. What she hadn't anticipated was the overwhelming sense of isolation that would settle in, an unexpected loneliness that lingered despite being surrounded by people. At first, Eleanor remained hopeful. She envisioned lively conversations, shared experiences, and a newfound community among residents. But reality quickly painted a different picture. You don't realize how isolating it can be until you're sitting in your room, day after day, with no one to talk to, Eleanor admitted. One of the greatest emotional challenges she faced was the absence of meaningful connections. Many residents, including Eleanor, longed for deep, engaging conversations but found it difficult to build those relationships. "Most of the people around me were dealing with their own struggles," she explained. "Some were too unwell to socialize, while others had withdrawn into themselves." The days stretched on, marked by routine rather than spontaneity. Some moments felt as though she had faded into the background, unnoticed in the crowd of residents who, like her, were trying to adjust to an unfamiliar way of life. Even though the nursing home staff was kind and professional, their interactions were often brief and task-oriented. Eleanor appreciated their assistance, but it never truly replaced the warmth of heartfelt conversations. "It wasn't about neglect," she said, "but no one really had time to sit and talk. I missed those small but significant moments, the ones that remind you you're still seen and valued." As time passed, the weight of isolation took a serious toll on her mental well-being. She began losing motivation, no longer feeling the same eagerness to engage with the world around her. "The days started to blur together," she said. "I felt like I was disappearing, as if my presence didn't truly matter anymore." This emotional decline led to increased anxiety, occasional panic, and even mild depression. Without regular mental stimulation and social engagement, Eleanor found herself withdrawing more and more. She realized how essential small joys were: unexpected visits, spontaneous laughter, or a simple shared story. These elements, which had once made life feel vibrant, now felt out of reach. What Eleanor wants others to understand is that being surrounded by people doesn't always equate to feeling connected. While nursing homes can meet physical needs, they often overlook the emotional and psychological aspects of aging. Her message is clear: don't underestimate the mental and emotional toll of losing daily interactions with friends, family, and community. Before making this decision, consider how you will maintain a sense of connection and purpose. Loneliness is not just an emotion. It's a serious condition that can impact your overall health just as much as any physical ailment. The next part of this video is now available on my channel.